Hey everyone, Joey here. In this video I'm going to show you how I took a bunch of this stuff and turned it into this. A shelf-style N-scale switching layout that's really lightweight, easily transportable, and can be mounted pretty much anywhere. My layout is based on the Niagara Frontier Food Terminal in Buffalo, New York, set sometime around the 1950s. During its heyday, it was a bustling place with room for over 100 rail cars at any given time. I don't have the room to build a one-to-one track plan for it, so I decided to simply build something that captured the essence of the food terminal, but was still able to be operated in a similar fashion to how it once was in real life. Today, the terminal grounds are overgrown and doesn't receive rail traffic any longer, so I'll need to reference old photos and the terminal's history in order to make it look realistic. It all starts with a track plan. I had started a larger layout before this one, and quite honestly, it was too much too soon. I had just come back to the hobby of model railroading after a 30-year break, and I quickly realized I was biting off way more than I could chew. So I scrapped the larger layout and set out to create a small switching layout instead, something I could both run some operations on, have some fun with, and use as a way to get better at things like scenery. I chose Kato Unitrack for my layout since it's easy to snap together, make adjustments with, and, didn't have to solder anything right away. After a week or two of playing with the track plan, I was satisfied with it, then started to get to work on creating a module to attach it to. I decided on using pink extruded insulation foam, as it was durable, lightweight, and easy to carve up. The module is built with 4 layers of 1-inch foam, with each layer serving a different purpose. The base layer is the foundation, that'll be the shelf. The middle 2 layers house the electronics, and the top layer serves as the ground level for the track and scenery. I cut out all the necessary pieces and routed some channels for the wiring. Next, I fabricated a small shelf out of styrene that would house the electronics. I wanted to use DCC for this layout, and I ended up choosing the NCE power cab since it was by far the most beginner-friendly looking system I could find on the market. I'm super happy with it. I definitely plan on keeping out with NCE when I decide to build something bigger in the future. I mounted the DCC panel into a junction box and used magnets to attach it to the shelf. This way, I could easily remove it should I need to make repairs or even use it on another layout down the road. With all the foam pieces figured out and the electronics settled on, I glued everything together with Gorilla Glue. Before attaching the top piece, however, I made sure my track plan was marked out on the foam and the turnouts were in place and holes drilled for the wires. I plan on manually operating the switches for this layout, but in case I change my mind in the future, I didn't want to limit myself by snipping off any wires. I simply decided to route a channel where they could be tacked in place. After assembling everything, I glued the track down with white glue and soldered all the joints. I used this little pen torch with a soldering tip attachment. Heats up quick, works great, and it's always handy to have a torch around. Now that everything was attached, I weathered the track using an airbrush and some Model Masters acrylic paint. The color was rail tie brown. I was careful to tape over the turnouts, and once the paint dried, removed the tape and painted the rest of the turnouts by hand using a small brush. For the outside of the layout, I created a fascia using oak hobby board that I stained with a dark wood stain. I also made sure that the spot where the electronics were housed could easily be removed, so that part I fastened with magnets. Everywhere else I used Gorilla Glue to hold it permanently in place. I'll also be adding small pieces of Lexan to the sides of the layout where the greatest risk of rail cars would be falling off, so just want to be safe on that part. With the track weathered and fascia attached, I started on the next big piece of scenery. Concrete parking lot and loading areas for the terminal. For this, I decided to go with actual concrete and chose a product called expansion cement that I picked up at the hardware store. I made some molds out of the foam from foam core boards since the expansion cement won't stick to it, and it had a very realistic concrete roadway-like texture for the scale I'm working in. After pouring the cement and popping the pieces out of the molds, I scribed all the lines for the concrete pad sections and weathered it using artist pastels. Once satisfied, I test fit them on the layout and then adhered them down with some liquid nails. Next up was the basic ground scenery. I built up areas surrounding the tracks with more foam core foam, since it was the same height as the ballast on the unitrack. I made removable puzzle-like pieces that I could easily take off the layout when I was working on them. This way I didn't get any ground foam or static grass in any places I didn't want it to get into. Once I was happy with the scenery, I simply glued it in place with hot glue. This is my first time using static grass, and I must say it was pretty easy to use and came out looking great. I did manage, however, to shock myself on the static applicator. That thing really packs a punch. Trust me, don't touch the wire mesh when it's on. So the next thing I did was I mounted some shelf brackets to this wall in my basement so I could take the layout off the workbench and place it onto its home. At least temporarily. We do plan on moving at some point, so I wanted to make sure that this layout was nice and light, easy to transport. All I have to do is take it off the shelf brackets and then pop it into the back of my car and away it goes. So with that, that concludes part one of this layout build. There's quite a bit more work I have to do. As you can see, I've mocked up some buildings, so I'm going to get into that, and also some other details like pallets and crates that I'll have to put into it. So there we go. If you're enjoying this, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any future updates. And until then, thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you later.